we supposed to?
Hello?
Oh, we still, I can't hear you, but did we start yet?
Hi, Linda. Are you able to hear us?
It's Linda.
But let everybody sit down.
I can't hear you.
Linda, this is John Myrtle. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but has the meeting started?
We're starting right now.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order
Good evening.
at 5 p.m. First order of business, please silence your phones. And the first item on the agenda is the election of chairman. And I will recognize Commissioner Adel for a nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the nomination of Buddy Salemi as chairman. He's a longtime member of this committee and chairman of it and has guided us for many years on a very smooth path, and I recommend that we continue to honor him as chair. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
So moved. All in favor of electing Commissioner Salemi as chairman of the Board of Finance, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Bud.
Thank you.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Ben.
Thank you. So thank you to everyone, and appreciate the endorsement from Commissioner Adel and votes from all of you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the election of a vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair? I would like to the privilege of the chair to nominate our vice chair, Alan Hoffman. Alan's been a vice chair with me now for, I think it's 14 years. I don't know, 12 years or 14 years. I can't remember. Can't get back past 2014, John, so on the website. So it's at least that long. And certainly served this committee well. So
Thank you.
is there a second to that nomination?
Second that.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations and ask all in favor of Alan Hoffman as vice chair, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Congratulations, Alan.
Thank you, sir.
I certainly appreciate having you as vice chair.
Been a pleasure.
I believe the next item on the agenda is public comments relative to agenda items. Are there any public comments relative to agenda items? Any public comments relative to agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5, approval of the minutes of December 4th. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of December 4th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Before we move on to item number 6, I'd ask, I'm privileged as chair to make a following statement. As I said, before item number 6 of the agenda is called, I ask that this board consider that my request described in that agenda item was made of the district board, actually in November of last year. And I ask to acknowledge without objection that the referral by majority vote of the board places it before the Board of Finance, which I serve as chair. Although Robert's Rules of Order allows that a chair of a committee or a board is free to speak and debate, make motions, and vote in all cases, and certainly I would have and will have all those rights before the district board, I ask this board to consider the following. In order for the chair to preside with impartiality and provide for orderly procedure during which it's my intention to place my request for indemnification and reimbursement of attorney's fees as stated before the Board of Finance, as directed by the District Board, and to participate in any discussion on the issue, I intend to ask the Board to allow for our Vice Chair, Alan Hoffman, without objection and with his acceptance, to preside over this matter, item number 6, until such time as it is disposed of by vote of the Board of Finance. But before I ask that, I have to inform the Board that in a conversation last week with our District Clerk regarding the possible executive session, he informed me that there is an opinion, or in his opinion, there's a request for executive session for the purpose of attorney-client privilege and to be provided with attorney-client work product might create a procedural issue, and I'll ask the clerk to repeat what he informed me of for the board regarding possible executive session as stated in the original agenda items.
Yeah, this is John Myrtle. When drafting the agenda, I spoke with Commissioner Salemi. He had indicated that he wanted it marked as possible executive session, and I asked him what the basis for that executive session would be. Obviously, the standard is public open meeting, and there's specific statutory exceptions that allow executive session. Chairman Salemi indicated that it was attorney-client privilege, and I asked him whether that was privilege of the district, or did he mean his privilege with his private attorney Sullivan? And he indicated he was referring to Attorney Sullivan. And so I told him, I did some research, and I told him I don't believe that to be a statutory basis for executive session. I think if you were to go into executive session on that basis, the logic kind of becomes circular because it's privileged communications or work product, and the second that was disclosed to any members of the committee, that eviscerates that privilege. And I wasn't able to find any FOI cases on a private attorney privilege to be a basis, so I informed the chairman of that.
No, thank you, John. So, notwithstanding any opinion to the contrary, I'll move forward as intended and make my presentation an open session with holding documents that were identified as attorney-client privilege and summarizing the contents of those documents if I have to verbally. I'll note for the record that although my presentation is somewhat inhibited by that, I certainly can go forward with it, and I think I can present enough for this board to be able to make a decision. I now ask the board to allow for our Vice Chair, Alan Hoffman, without objection and with his acceptance, to preside over this matter until such time as it's disposed of by vote of the Board of Finance, and ask the chair to call item number 6 at this time. You can move up here?
No, that's fine.
And I'm going to ask that Attorney Sullivan be able to move up here, or sit, up somewhere a little closer. He's in the back here, so if we can get him to get a seat up here or something, is that okay with the board? I'm going to need him for part of the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got Alan. Alan, why don't you move over here and I'll sit here.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I get it. Very good.
So Andy's going to make a motion when you call the items. So
Sure.
you recognize him.
Okay, so we're on item number 6.
Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Adel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the referral from the District Board, Ray, regarding request from Commissioner Salemi for indemnification reimbursement of private attorney fees. Forward, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need a vote?
Yes,
Okay, we don't need it. Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you all for being here for this meeting and for being present either online or here. I appreciate your attention to this matter, particularly since it's of great importance to me personally, and to other commissioners who might one day conclude that they require legal counsel and representation as an MDC commissioner as well. On April 19th of this year, Commissioner Curry and Lewis, both members of the IAC, wrote to commissioners, and I got that letter, and it talks about due process and documentation and stuff, and it was one of the reasons that I thought that I needed some help. As I think you know, I'm not an attorney, and I thought at that point, I did need some help. That was after the report was issued. So I'm not going to be asking this body or any of you individually to determine whether the charges brought against me by the IAC were accurate. I already know for myself and think that I can prove that they were inaccurate and without merit, and if afforded the procedural due process, I wouldn't be before you tonight. I wouldn't ask you, the members that I serve with on this board, to hear this matter if I wasn't absolutely certain of that and believe it's important to the integrity of the district to be addressed. I'm also not asking you to determine whether any party to the investigation or anyone involved in its conduct or proceedings is guilty of violations of our charter or has acted with the intent to deprive me of my rights as a commissioner in this matter or any other. Not asking for that either. I am asking you to determine whether any party to the investigation, since the district board has referred this matter here, I'm asking that you determine that the services of professional counsel, in particular of Attorney Sullivan, by the way, this is Attorney Jamie Sullivan, and he'll speak after I'm finished introducing this. They were necessary and remain appropriate, and with the understanding that district counsel could not and did not provide for my defense or counsel due to an acknowledged conflict, and to support my defense against the charge brought against me. With Attorney Sullivan's presentation after, with the services and fees for those services that he has provided, I'm asking that you consider that the services are responsive to the charge and the fees are reasonable, and to recommend them as such to the district board. On May 22nd, 2023, I engaged Attorney Jamie Sullivan of the firm of Logan, Vance, Sullivan, and Kors to counsel and represent me regarding the MDC Internal Audits Committee's charge that I had acted in violation of the district charter as advanced in its investigation report relating to Sandler and Mara invoices. The report is dated April 4, 2023, prepared by attorneys Patrick McHale and Jennifer L. Dixon of Canaan Escalera McHale. I spent virtually all my personal time between the submission of the report on April 4th and May 22nd, working on my response and speaking with 3 attorneys, including Jamie Sullivan, regarding my belief that my rights under Connecticut FOI provisions and the charter may not have been provided for or not supported by the procedures, and that my request for necessary documentation associated with the report had been somewhat inhibited by the fact that the investigation was conducted by a law firm and attorneys, and I cannot provide for my defense without professional counsel. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Attorney Sullivan, and he can talk about the services that he provided and the rest. So, Jamie, please. And thank you for allowing me to have Attorney Sullivan come
Thank you,
before you.
board members and commissioners. My name is Jamie Sullivan, and I've been practicing law for a little over 30 years. I've, in the past, represented individuals who are public officials. So I've made somewhat of a specialization in that area. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the microphone, that's the microphone here, so. Sorry, Jamie.
Before being engaged by Commissioner Salimi, I didn't know him, I never met him, I never heard of him. But he was referred to me by a lawyer that I know well. So I was engaged by Commissioner Salimi to assist him. And I think it's appropriate that he hired an attorney like me who has a specialization in this area, because the conclusions that were reached in the McHale report were conclusions by a lawyer, and they were legal conclusions. And Commissioner Commissioner Salimi is not a lawyer, and I think he needed help not only to address the legal analysis that was employed in that report, but to address, to have assistance in getting information that he was unable to get on his own. And so I assisted him in really undoing a logjam that he had confronted in terms of getting information and documents. And so once he hired me, we were able to get the information and documents that he needed to assist in his defense. The work that I've done, and I pride myself on doing as little as I can for my clients because I'm sensitive to the needs, the financial needs of clients and others. You know, I assisted him in analyzing the report and getting the information. Commissioner Salimi forwarded me minutes and other information as by way of background. We often spoke on the phone and by way of email and text. And ultimately, I guided him through the process in terms of mounting a defense to the charge that he violated the charter. And so that's primarily the scope of my representation, what I've done on his behalf. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Chair, can I ask a couple questions?
Please.
First question I have is
Commissioner, just say your name first.
Commissioner
Please.
Yakavazi.
Thank you.
Is Chairman Salemi recusing from a vote on this? Or required to, or
You want to direct that to the attorney?
either, or I guess, I'm not sure, or to the board, or to the clerk,
I
I'm not
think,
sure.
excuse me, Joe, but I think you could ask the district clerk
Okay, that goes to the clerk.
if he
Yep.
believes that I have to recuse myself.
Right.
We'll see what he says.
Well,
Counsel-
if I
District
might,
Counsel.
Chris Stone, District Counsel, I think a referral to our ethics code is probably appropriate. I don't know whether it's B6, John, or
D.
B6D. B6D. Why don't you, can you pop that up on your computer? I will preface, before John reads that, to your point, issues like whether one has a personal conflict and is compelled to recuse him or herself are just that, are personal to the individual. And they have to make the decision, at least initially, as to whether they have a conflict and whether they should or should not act on a particular matter. We've gone a little farther than that in our code of ethics, and I'll let John, with that introduction, read that section.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna try to throw it up on the WebEx as well, so people can see it. And it should be on the screens. Okay, bylaw B6D, titled Disclosure of Interest. No officer, commissioner, citizen member, or employee shall engage in or participate in any business or transaction, including outside employment with a private business, or pursue an interest directly or indirectly which is incompatible with the proper discharge of his or her official responsibilities in the public interest, or which would tend to impair his or her independent judgment or action in the performance of official responsibilities. If any officer, commissioner, citizen member, or employee has a personal interest, or a member of his or her immediate family has a financial or personal interest in any matter coming before or which has been before the district board or any of its bureaus, commissions, or committees, or if there's any matter the consummation of which is incompatible with the proper discharge of official duties, such officer, commissioner, citizen member, or employee shall so advise such body. If such officer, commissioner, citizen member, or employee is a member of such body, he or she shall refrain from voting upon or otherwise participating in the consideration of such matter or any determination in connection therewith by such body, and shall not be present at any executive session of such body at which such matter is considered. Notwithstanding the prohibition in subsection A, such officer, commissioner, citizen member, or employee may vote or otherwise participate in a matter if it involves a determination of general policy and the interest is shared with a substantial segment of the population of the municipality, provided in the case of a commissioner, said commissioner shall not preside over any meeting or hearing involving such matter. And then the bylaw continues on to the conflict of interest disclosure forms. That's the relevant part, though.
So that's our code of ethics. That's the section that, and I haven't looked at it, whether there's others that apply here, but that's certainly the section that applies more or less on point as to your question. And I guess I'd like to hear from Commissioner Salemi or his counsel on whether they feel that based upon that section, that he should not, that Commissioner Salemi should not participate in the vote. I think that was the question on the vote in this matter.
Well, I would only say, and I'll let Jamie answer this, that I didn't hear, your question wasn't about a conflict of interest. Your question was about whether or not I can vote on, or I intended to vote on this matter. So, and I think that what we heard is that I could vote. And so I you know, I don't know, I'd like to ask Jamie to defer on that. And you know, I don't want anybody to, I just want to make sure that your question gets answered, okay? I don't have to, I mean, I'll let Jamie answer it, but you asked the question, and I think the answer is that I can vote on it, but I'll let Jamie go ahead and answer if he thinks.
I mean, I'm well-versed in codes of ethics. I came up with a code of ethics for the city of New Britain, and but on this point, I really think it's up to Commissioner Salemi to determine whether or not he feels that he can vote on it or not. I really can't examine his conscience for him. Okay. If he feels this is appropriate, I think it's appropriate.
I will only say that, you know, I'd like to hear from, if there are any other questions or anything from other commissioners or board members. That's all.
Yeah, Attorney Stone?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for recognizing me. Chris Stone, District Council. I'm not sure that what John read, what the clerk read, indicated that you could vote. There was, I'm sorry, I shouldn't speak, indicated that Commissioner Salemi could vote. I think there are circumstances that he outlined in that section where he could vote, a matter of general public concern and I forget the exact language. But as to items of or issues of a personal nature, my understanding is that we go beyond, our code of ethics goes beyond the standard as expressed, I expressed, and as Attorney Sullivan expressed, that it's personal to the individual, and he or she should decide based in their conscience whether they should participate or not. We then go that step further and within our bylaws state specifically that in certain circumstances, as outlined in the bylaw, that they should not participate. You don't have to agree with the way I'm interpreting it, or that John is interpreting it, but that appears to be, it is what our code of ethics says. So based upon that, if you still feel that you should participate in the vote on this participation on this discussion, vote on this item, then.
I certainly don't intend to have this hearing be about whether or not I can vote.
No, I'm just trying to answer the question. I don't know when the question.
I understand it. I appreciate the question. I mean, I thought the question was more aligned to, and I looked at the charter that, you know, that I can't vote for anything where I would receive any financial benefit for myself. And I don't see that as the case. I mean, we're talking about paying the attorney bills because he's provided counsel, because counsel I couldn't use counsel here at the district, which is I understand. I mean, I understand why that happened, but and that's really the case. So there's no financial benefit directly to me. We're talking about, I'm not talking about anything coming to me. I'm talking about paying the bills of the attorney to represent me. If someone feels that, you know, that is actually a financial benefit to me, I would recuse myself from voting on this. I'm not going to recuse myself from speaking on it. I have to make this presentation.
We need you to participate. Yeah, there's no question about that. So I think, if I might, Mr. Chairman, through you.
Please.
Thank you, District Council. If when you, as I read your request, you request reimbursement. which to me means, and you may not have meant it this way, that you've paid Attorney Sullivan already and want to be reimbursed for that expense. Is that
That's correct.
accurate? Okay. So then the question becomes, is that a financial benefit to the commissioner or not? The reimbursement of his expense for Attorney Sullivan, and that's
I also asked.
him to decide really initially, but ultimately.
No,
it's-
I mean, I had to pay him. I mean,
You know those lawyers.
I'd say that he's a great guy, but he's not a volunteer, and I don't think any of the attorneys that I know are volunteers. Just all I'm gonna say. But I would say that we also asked about indemnification, which is more about, and I'll let Jamie explain this better, but I use that only because it's the statutory language, but that has to do with any future work that he may have to do for me in representing me if this moves on to some other forum or something where it's going to be adjudicated. This obviously has to go back to the district board. What the Board of Finance, and I mentioned it before, and I'll read it again, the resolution that I think should forward is that it's a recommendation by the Board of Finance that you've received the presentation from me that the services that Jamie provided were reasonable with respect to the charges made against me, and I'll let him explain the rest of that. If you have any questions, he can explain the rest of that. So that being said, I'd like to turn it back over to him if there's any questions of him regarding that. So you want to explain the indemnification.
Hey, 1 second.
Um,
Commissioner Rattle.
Actually, I'm probably asking the question regarding what Attorney Sullivan's going to say, but I just wanted to know a little bit more about Attorney Sullivan's viewpoint of why it was necessary to engage him in the first place.
I think it was necessary because Commissioner Salami was faced with a legal analysis by a lawyer, Patrick McCabe, and the other lawyers in his office. And he is a lay person. He doesn't have any legal training to address those legal analyses. And so he needed the assistance of me. In addition, as I mentioned, he came upon a logjam in terms of getting information, so I had to assist him in getting information by way of filing actual FOIA claims with the Freedom of Information Commission. I don't think he could have done that without him, without legal assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Yakavazzi, can I direct a question to Chair Salemi or Attorney Sullivan?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious if there's an estimate for total expense incurred so far?
Well, again, I'd ask Attorney Sullivan to respond to that, but I would say that, the rates, it's an hourly rate that gets done for something like this. There was no guarantee of a lump sum or anything. It was just, hourly rates to respond to the issues that we had to deal with. And I thought they were reasonable. But I'll let Attorney Sullivan respond to that.
I don't have an exact figure, but I think it's approximately $15,000. And that is for services rendered from May until today's date.
Commissioner Russo.
Thank you. Attorney Sullivan, is that based on an hourly rate?
It is
And what's your hourly rate?
$350 an hour.
Do you have a copy of the bill that we could see?
I have a copy of bills that can be disclosed, but I worry about, I'm happy to disclose the bills, but I'm worried that they may reveal some attorney-client privilege. But I've brought in the bills with me, and I'm happy to share them if it doesn't open up any kind of attorney-client privilege.
Well, has your, after this evening, has your relationship with Attorney Salemi concluded, or do you anticipate more charges will be, more billable charges will be forthcoming?
I would hope that that he needs me as little as possible, and that we could draw this matter to a close very quickly and inexpensively as well. But I can't guarantee what's going to happen because I don't know what the reaction of others is going to be. I know that Commissioner Salimi has used me sparingly. He's done a lot of the groundwork himself. He's prepared a lot of the documents himself. I've been more of just there to guide him in an inexpensive way and with as little input from me as possible. But when he needed input from a lawyer in a specialized area, I gave it to him. And people often feel that, you know, they can act as their own lawyer. And when lawyers do that, we call those lawyers, their clients are fools. Because the legal profession, despite what some perceive, is very specialized and technical. And some think that they can wing it on their own. And I think, to Commissioner Salimi's credit, he realized his limitations and reached out to somebody like me.
So the bill we're looking at, you're saying is 15,000,
Approximately.
well, more, less? What does that mean? I mean,
There is some time that I have not captured recently that, but it's approximately 15,000.
okay.
I would like to answer part of your question too, Linda, is that, you know, the expectation is that the referral came here and that this board will make a recommendation to the district board. So I have to go back to the district board with the same, I think essentially the same presentation. So that may be, you know, as far as it goes, because at that point, I think I can complete my response to the report and submit it to the district board. And if it ends there, then my services of, you know, Attorney Sullivan will end with it, so.
Well, maybe this is a question for Attorney Stone. Is there, or someone else, is there a ceiling as to how much we would reimburse for, if there's a conflict between you representing a commissioner, Attorney Stone, is there a ceiling as to how much in outside legal fees could be reimbursed?
No.
No?
Christoph, District Council, no.
No? Okay.
There's an initial question, and that is the authority of this board or the full board to actually reimburse or indemnify for private counsel. We haven't decided that. We don't expect this board to decide that tonight. I think and I don't think there was any, there was a referral to Board of Finance, and I could be wrong on this, but it's working off my recollection. There wasn't a specific task assigned to this board by the full board. It was a straight referral.
Okay.
Now, as we can imagine, you're the Board of Finance, right? So generally, referrals to the Board of Finance involve money, involve the expenditure of money, the appropriation of money. Where would you find it within the budget, et cetera? So that's, and oftentimes, the board or bureau that controls the money also controls the policy, right?
Right.
Because if you don't fund something, then you're really establishing, perhaps indirectly, perhaps purposely, policy. So I think it'd be unfair for this board, given its role in the finances, to be asked to make that initial leap, and I don't mean that in or step,
Sure.
probably better, of determining whether or not the full board has the authority to do what Commissioner Salemi and Attorney Sullivan are asking them to do. I don't think it's fair to this board, and I wouldn't expect this board to make that determination. We have not been formally asked to prepare an opinion, but we're in the process of preparing an opinion anyway, because it's something that's of importance to the board. Certainly it's important to Commissioner Salemi. And so we're going to do that. I think for these purposes, I recognize that there may be some information within the billing that involve attorney-client communications and privileges. But I also we have a process, so in order for us to even consider, or have this body consider a payment, we need the bills. So, but there's a way to get around that, right? You can redact whatever you think is attorney-client privileged so that you're not either waiving it or disclosing, more importantly, disclosing it. That's an exercise that may take some time, but we're here. So that's one way to address that. But I think in order for them to, whether it's here or at the full board, to consider payment, it can't be, no offense, but it can't be, around $15,000. I think to your point, well, is it up more or less? It's got to be, you're going to have to, whenever that day comes, if it's tonight or some other day, it's going to come down to what amount are you appropriating or allocating towards this expense, period. It's not going to be around $15,000, right? So, and then going forward, we really have no idea. I know that there's the statute that I think Commissioner Salemi is referring to is the Indemnity for Municipal Officers statute, and we're looking into that. That's part of our analysis, but that's an unknown number because a commitment to indemnify does not have a cap on it. Obviously, assuming that the services rendered towards that for that indemnified person are reasonable. That's the standard, right? So if you want to think of a cap, it's a reasonable standard. But I think Commissioner Salemi is here to answer questions that anyone might have. He's brought Attorney Sullivan, has paid for Attorney Sullivan to be here to answer questions you might have. I don't want to monopolize this discussion, but so I think back to you, Mr. Chairman. If anyone else has any questions, we can deal with those and then decide what to do going forward.
We do. We have Commissioner Van Dyke on the phone attending this meeting. Commissioner Van Dyke?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hoffman. This is Commissioner Van Dyke. I am not a member of the Finance Committee, but just have a few simple questions that I'm hoping somebody can go ahead and answer. With the way the resolution is written, does passage of the resolution mean that the Finance Committee would support the indemnification of Commissioner Salemi?
The resolution isn't written yet.
I was going to say, if I might, Mr. Chairman, and again, I just trying to move it along. We don't have a resolution right now. So we have a request that outlines a request for reimbursement, but there's no formal resolution before this body addressing that issue. So.
Further question, Commissioner Van Dyke?
Yes, thank you so much. I just have 2 or 3 more, just simple questions. And maybe our general counsel can help us out with this. Has something like have we ever seen something like this before where a commissioner has hired a personal attorney and then after the fact sought reimbursement and received reimbursement for those expenses?
I don't know, but I'll.
I mean, if I might, Chris Stone, District Counsel, not to my recollection, and the more time I spend here, the recollection of what happened 30 years ago becomes blurrier and blurrier. Sometimes what happened last week is blurry, but not to my recollection has a request for private counsel been made and paid. There are situations, and it's within the statute, where if an official is, and it's happened, is as a commissioner is sued by an employee on a discrimination claim, or some reason that the chair of the district is named in a condemnation suit, whatever it might be. But if they're in district business, if they're need to defense, then if we were to have a conflict, then we would hire outside counsel to defend defend the commissioner on that claim. That's the indemnity statute that I believe
If I may, please, Mr. Chairman.
Salemi
So
was referring to.
Commissioner Salemi.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not asking this board in particular, not asking this board to respond to the statute. What I'm asking for is, and we'll ask the district board as well, to consider that, that I needed counsel to represent me, and that the services provided by that counsel are appropriate and responsive to the charges against me, and that the fees associated with it are reasonable. I think the district board can do that without being compelled by a statute, and I think we can certainly ask for that, and that's what I'm here.
No, you've asked for it.
I'm not asking that, I'm not here to, this is not a court, and so I'm not here to, I think if you had any other questions about that, I'd let Attorney Sullivan answer them, but I think this board has the ability to recommend that you heard a case and you said, it makes sense to us. That's basically what the recommendation is going to say. And the board gets to hear it and says, okay, we have the authority to authorize the district council to hire a counsel or pay a counsel for certain services. So, I mean, at that point, I think that the district board can make the decision on whether to actually do that. And, well, this board can only recommend to the district board that seems appropriate. I don't know if you've got anything to say about the indemnification or anything, but that's the way that I saw it. I only use that word because, it's prospective. We know how much service he's already provided, in response, and it got me a long way. And now all it's got to do now is get me in front of the board to basically ask the board to reimburse the costs for Attorney Sullivan. This is not about the actual report or my response to it or the charges in the report. There's no way that I'm asking anybody here to adjudicate any of that. I said that before, or to accuse anybody else of anything else myself. So I'm just asking that this board to consider it. So I would say that a resolution would sound something like what I said before, is basically that the Board of Finance recommends to the district board that Commissioner Salemi avail themselves of attorney services because they couldn't be represented by district counsel. So I got my own attorney to do that, and that he represented me by counseling me, and that the services he provided were, responsive to the charges, and that the fees associated with those services are reasonable. That's basically, I don't know if I can write that on the spot. I'm not, but that would be close to what I'm asking for a resolution. So, and I'm certainly willing to answer any other questions or have Attorney Sullivan answer any questions, but I think I wanted to characterize what we're trying to do or what I'm asking you to do. So.
Commissioner Van Dyke, you still have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
Further questions along those lines or other? So,
Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just clarification.
Commissioner.
Commissioner
The guy.
Sakai. Question, just clarifying what the charges were. I don't recall. I know I'm fairly new, so I might have overlooked it or not remember what happened, but if you could just go from memory.
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Thank you,
Attorney Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Counsel. The independent investigators report, the author of the report came to certain conclusions. And as to Commissioner Salemi, and I'm sure, and I don't mean this facetiously, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but the investigator made a finding that Commissioner Salemi authorized the expenditures of district funds for the work of an attorney without being authorized to do so.
I don't, excuse me, that's, now we're gonna get into the report. That is not what the
Then
charge was.
listen, then you
That's,
I have the floor,
Commissioner Salemi.
please.
He
I
does
didn't
have-
ask to have that.
Let me just finish.
But he
Listen,
does
I-
have the floor.
That report doesn't say
Salemi.
that.
I was asked a
Sorry.
question. I will pull up the report and we'll read from
Thank
the
you.
report. That's fine. If I misstated, I apologize. It wasn't intentional. I'm just trying to, it's, the real, excuse me, the real issue is, there's a report. It was passed on, it was submitted to the audit committee. Regardless of what the findings were, it was then moved from the audit committee, who had, it was close to unanimous vote, who had the charge of doing this investigation. Went from the audit committee to the district board. In terms of charging with Commissioner Salemi with anything, nothing was charged. The board acknowledged receipt of the report, took no action on the report, other than to accept the prospective recommendations of the independent investigator in terms of processes within the district, made no findings, didn't confirm, affirm any of the conclusions reached by the special counsel, independent counsel, at all. And I think that was the May 2023 meeting. It was, the recommendations were voted on and accepted unanimously, I believe. And that, at least in some people's mind, ended the issue. And I get why we're here, but I mean, that was it. Now, John, do you have the report? Can you call the report up?
I can.
And I don't necessarily want to get into what was charged. I was asked a question. If I got it wrong, I want to get it right. That's all.
If I may be heard. I think,
Yes, sir.
Go through the chair.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yep. By all means, Attorney Sullivan.
Sum and substance is that Commissioner Salemi violated a provision of the charter.
Is that?
Charge, yeah, well,
It's a
Okay.
a
it
single
doesn't say
charge.
anything about authorizing funds or anything like that. I think that's kind of misleading. What it
Well-
says is that I continued to work with somebody, and I was never told not to. In fact, if we're gonna adjudicate this whole thing here, it's gonna get a big mess. I didn't ask for this. I asked you to consider, the reasonable services of an attorney, reasonable fees, and to help me defend myself against the charge that was made.
I was just
And,
talking about, if you
yeah.
accept that your counsel's representation, that's fine. Whatever. I stand corrected. I added too much to the, I just want to make sure the question's answered. So take Attorney Sullivan's answer, not mine.
Basically, he said that I violated
But
this,
that's not-
the charter provision for the Board of Finance.
Right.
So, if that's, I mean, we don't need to, like I said, I don't need to adjudicate that. I already can. I'm not asking you to do that here. And it has no bearing on whether or not I need an attorney to help me, so.
I was just answering a question.
Mr. Chairman, while John's looking for the report, could I just ask another question?
Yes, Commissioner Sagai.
Thank you. I'm just curious, I'm not an attorney, and nor do I work with attorneys to know what the fees are ballpark. So, I mean, is this an average rate that we are, like, the attorney will be paid for? Is this more of the high end, is this more of the low end, medium end of the pay rate, or the hourly rate? Is that the going rate generally?
Well, you're not going to ask Attorney Sullivan that question,
Attorney
right?
Stone will answer.
Well, I'll add that through the commissioner, through the chair.
You
I may.
want to go first? Yes.
Well, you don't have to. That is not an unreasonable fee, hourly rate.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Further questions? I guess I have,
Chairman, if I may,
yes, please.
I'm not on the committee, but I do have a couple of questions.
Commissioner Avedisian.
Oh, Commissioner Abdiz, I'm sorry. Because this obviously is gonna be brought up at the board, so I have a question, if I may, for Commissioner, Van Dyke on the report, and very simple. Commissioner, when you came up with your final report, were there any fines that were gonna be put against anybody for what happened?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Dyke?
Did you hear
Thank
the
you very
question?
much, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Mandyke, there were no, Commissioner Avedisian, there were.
Okay, were there any, recommendations of removal from chairmanship?
No, there were not.
Any, recommendation for removal from the commission?
No, there were not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair? Oh, is there
Go ahead.
someone else?
Commissioner Salam.
Yeah, thank you. Huh? No, I'm not, I'm just saying, I think I presented, in my statement, the reason why, and I also, as, there was a statement sent out that was sent to, Chairman DeBella back in November, and that statement was actually sent to you too. It's in part of the minutes, and, it basically says that, that I could take it out and read it. I don't want to spend any more time doing that. But basically said that I was concerned about my reputation as a commissioner, that I'd been charged with a violation after, over 30 years of serving the MDC, and that it was personally damaging to me. And that's all I said. And it didn't mean to. That doesn't mean that I'm looking to do anything other than clear my name by getting an opportunity to prove that it wasn't true. That's basically all I'm trying to do. And I would suggest, if there aren't any more questions, that a resolution, that the resolution that I would suggest would be that the Board of Finance recommends to the district board that, as I said before, that, the Commissioner Salemi has hired an attorney to represent him. The district counsel's office couldn't represent him in this case, and that the services he provided were in response to the defense against the charges, and that the fees associated with it are reasonable. That's my suggestion for a resolution.
Anything further, Attorney Sullivan, on that? Oh, okay. Yes, Commissioner Russo.
The only problem with your resolution, Commissioner Salemi, is sitting here tonight, I can't state that those fees were reasonable if I don't know what they were for, line by line. I don't know. I as Attorney Stone indicated, you can submit the bill, you can redact it, certain portions of it so for the attorney-client privilege issue. But I think as far as I could go is that we move a resolution to refer this matter to the district board for further consideration. I would feel very uncomfortable saying they're reasonable fees when I don't know that. I have no way of knowing that.
I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Russo. I'll note that I did, ask for a possible executive session, and I did say that, we could have provided attorney-client work product in that. I'm going to leave the rest of that up to Attorney Sullivan, and if that's going to help, and there's some way that we could do it, I'll let him explain it if we can.
And just to follow up, if I may, so I have an understanding of it. Attorney Stone, you could not represent Commissioner Salemi because it was deemed to be a conflict of interest. Am I correct? That's a very broad
Well,
statement, but
I've been asked to, if I might, through you, Mr.
Please.
Chairman. Thank you. I've been asked, on at least one occasion I can remember, to have my office represent a commissioner on a personal matter.
Right.
That involved the NDC. It involved the NDC, but it was personal to that particular commissioner. And I was asked to intercede on that commissioner's behalf as district counsel. And take certain action on behalf of that commissioner as district counsel on a matter that related to, didn't involve district business, but involved that commissioner's interaction with the public on some issues and some statements that were made about that commissioner. And I'll wait.
Just recommending that.
Commissioner Russo?
And I didn't finish.
Waiting for
And,
him.
and, and I did not represent that commissioner and could not represent that commissioner. It was personal to the commissioner. So that's the only example that I can give you.
Mr. Chair, if I
Tell you
might.
that, I will tell you that while it's been laid out as to what, one of the options that you can do, you're bringing up potentially another option, which would be to almost re-refer this back to the board for a fuller consideration, and not only of the bills, which you'll have time to redact whatever attorney-client privilege information you think is in there that needs to be redacted. I think in hopefully questions that are out there, we can finish our opinion from my office. We haven't, been in deference to the petitioner here, Commissioner Salemi and his counsel, we didn't finish that because we didn't know exactly what we're dealing with here, both not only in terms of amount, but in terms of what the underlying ask was. So that being said, there's other options, and whether it's accepting, moving to endorse the proposed resolution, not endorse it, or the middle ground would be to refer it back to the commission for a more thorough analysis.
If I could, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to make sure there's an understanding here. I didn't say that, I had an attorney because I had a conflict. I said I had to get an attorney because the counsel's office was conflicted. The counsel was involved in the investigation. So they were, I'm not questioning, I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I'm not saying anything about that. All I'm saying is
I
that
understood that.
he had a conflict with it and couldn't represent me, certainly not in the manner that Attorney Sullivan has. So that was my thing. But I will say that if it's important, and I guess that it is, I thought it was in the beginning, but because of the attorney-client work privilege thing, I'm willing to say that we'll, if it's the wish of this board, that we can table this and we can get a redacted version of it and present it to this, if we want to table it for now, we can present it to the commissioners. We have a meeting scheduled for next week, for the 24th. If we can add that as an agenda item, without, a lot more, issues, I think that Attorney Sullivan's willing to provide a redacted version that will take out any of the protected attorney-client stuff, and you will see all the fees and the services provided. And I would only say that they certainly seemed reasonable to me, and I wasn't about to spend any money that I didn't have to, I can tell you that, so.
Sure.
Yes.
That answer your question?
Why don't you say
Well,
that?
I just have one
Please.
follow-up
Oh,
to
please.
Attorney Stone, and you're in the process of writing a brief on the issue that would be available to us as well.
I'm not writing it.
No,
It'll be an opinion from the
opinion.
Office of District Counsel, but
Yeah.
understanding that what might come up here tonight, I decided to defer that opinion to other lawyers in my office, but it'll be opinion of my office.
Okay. And when do you anticipate that will be available?
Well, I'm going to take what I've learned tonight, speak to the authors of the draft and have that incorporated into the draft, and we'll probably have it, I have a conference on, although I'm not writing it, but I have to review it, but I have a conference next week, but I think that they could probably get the revised final draft to me when I get back, and we'll have it next Wednesday. It's your meeting's next Wednesday, right?
I believe so, yeah.
We'll have it Wednesday.
I mean, we can do that, or we can get the redacted version to them, and you can send that to the district board with this, with a referral back to the district board, and I'll make the presentation there. Whatever's this board decides to do is okay with me. It's obviously important, and like I said, I thought it was important because I wanted to be able to say that they were reasonable fees, and I think you're right. I mean, in order for you to understand them that way, you need to see them. But we knew from the beginning that this was going to be an issue, and can't get handled in executive session. Then we'll do the redaction, and we'll get it back to them, and what to do it this way. I think if I have to get Attorney Sullivan back for another meeting of the Board of Finance, and as long as that's the only issue, I would say it's okay. If we're going to open up more issues, then I'm going to have to get them back again. But if that's the only issue that we're going to have, is I can present it to this board, and they can make the recommendation. But I think at that point, the discussion is, the rest of the questions, the discussion is over, and this is all we're looking for, is the redacted version of this, for you to see that. Happy to provide that at the next meeting, and then you can make your recommendation then. I think you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to open up this entire presentation again and, have, the same questions answered again, or, new questions. So with that understanding, I'm willing to if someone wants to make that motion, table it until we can get the redacted version to you, and then we'll reopen the issue on next week, and you'll have the fees, so you can see whether or not they're reasonable. So.
Mr. Chairman Curry, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Curry, I'm looking at two options. And first, my numbers say that's about 43 billable hours. Is that correct, to get to $15,000, give or take? Which I will add is a lot less hours than I've spent in my first 6 days as chair of this board. So thank you, Bill. But can we have two options? How long, Attorney, through you, Mr. Chair, Attorney Sullivan, how long would it take you to go into my office and redact the documents you have? Is that possible?
I think I'd have to, it would take some time. I think it's something that I've got to give some thought. I've got to talk to Commissioner Salimi, so I don't think I could do it tonight.
All right. And then the other option would be going into executive session where we understand we're bound by confidentiality, and Commissioner Russo, who has raised the question, is also an attorney and most definitely understands executive session. And those that would like to question, would it be possible to determine in executive session if those hours are reasonable, those billing hours?
Just done.
Attorney Stone.
Thank you, Chris Stone, District Counsel. On that last point, we've already made a determination that there's no exemption within the FOI statute that would allow you to go into executive session. So that's not an option.
For you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Not even just to
Commissioner Curry.
determine if hours are billable or reasonable?
It's not about what you're actually going to, you have to go into executive session for reasons stated within the FOI statute. Nowhere within the FOI statute is an exemption relating to review of bills or the possible implication of an attorney-client privilege between someone who the MDC is not a party to that. It's not, you don't have a privilege to waive.
So then, through you, Mr. Chairman, the two choices are, we could act tonight and just refer it for consideration by the board, or we could have a second meeting where we could look at redacted numbers and then make a determination whether this board wants to refer on for consideration or refer on recommendation. So I leave that up to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Adel?
I think I'd like to make a motion to table and move it to the meeting on the 24th and get the redacted billing at that point.
If I
Second
may,
it.
if I may just respond to that, it seems like we just postpone what we may or may not do tonight. So it doesn't really get us down the field. It just.
Well, it would address Commissioner Russo's
Yeah,
concerns.
yes, I got that. However, if we decide that a simple referral back to the board, to the full board, I believe that's the case that says we took no action and we refer as a referral, not a recommendation, but a referral back to action that we expect the full board to take. Go ahead, Chairman Curry.
Commissioner Curry, would it be, can we put, give consideration to not tabling, but to recessing until, say, the 24th, earlier than this regular scheduled meeting, and then go back into the meeting off of a recess without doing anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
could,
by all means,
you know,
Commissioner Saul.
I said, I mean, how you actually do that is certainly, you know, the will of this board. But I did say that I think we were willing to take the documents, and I think Jamie's right. I think that we have to kind of go through them. We're not going to change the dollar amounts but there are some information that's associated with it that needs to be redacted. I would say that, you know, if that's the only issue, that we don't have that for this board to see, that we will provide that. And if we do it through a recess or tabling, doesn't matter. I just said, but I did say that, you know, I don't expect that we have to open this entire presentation up again. We've been asked to provide the services and the fees associated with them. We can certainly do that with an opportunity to redact what we think is attorney-client privilege. And we'll be happy to do that if that's what the wish of this board is. I don't know that there's any question beyond that. The questions have all been asked. I don't know if there's any question beyond that. The question on the floor is, you know, can we see the bills? And we're saying, yes, we can, but we need to redact some attorney-client privilege thing. So in order to answer that question, you know, we need some time to do this, and we'll do it. But that's the circumstance under which, if it's going to be recessed or tabled, that's the circumstance which. And I think it's the same reason why we need to redact this, because we're not trying to put on a case about the report or any of that. We haven't tried to do that. I said from the beginning that we're not even asking that you consider that anything, you know, that there was anything that needs to be adjudicated with respect to this. All we're asking is that you look at the services that were provided, you consider that the district counsel's office, and it was the entire office, not just Counsel Stone, the entire office was prohibited from representing me as a commissioner, and I had to seek counsel. I'm asking for the board to consider paying for that counsel, and that's what I came here with, because the board referred it here. I asked for that of the board. So with respect to that, if there's some way to you know, move this as a table or a recess, It's okay with me, and I think with Attorney Sullivan, as long as the issue is the redacted version of his bills, which we will provide.
Mr. Chairman? Questions?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sagai?
Commissioner Sagai, sorry.
Thank you. I guess Commissioner Salemi or to his attorney, will you think they'll be done by the next meeting, 24th?
Yes.
Okay. And as for question for Attorney Stone, will your opinion be finished as well by the next meeting scheduled?
Sure, yes. And I just want to add one thing.
And I wanted to add
I
something.
have one more follow-up question.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Yes.
One more follow-up question. I just noticed my calendar. There is a Personnel and Pensions Insurance Committee meeting at 4 o'clock, so I don't know if that's supposed to be running shorter than scheduled, but it's running up until 5:30. I'm not sure if we can then meet before, if we were to recess this meeting before the next meeting. So if we would then decide tonight before our next meeting.
I can address
Can
that
you
final point.
answer
This is
that?
John Myrtle. This, excuse me, this year for the regular meetings for PPI, Finance, and Water Bureau BPW, rather than an hour, we're doing an hour and a half for the first meeting. So PPI is 4 to 5:30, Finance is scheduled for 5:30.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, Attorney Sullivan.
The request that Commissioner Salimi is asking is not for indemnification. He's asking that this board and the greater district reimbursed him for the fees that have been incurred. We're not basing it on a statutory analysis, so I'm not sure whether Attorney Stone's analysis is going to be germane, because we're conceding and it's not based on the statute, but that it's based on what the board can do to reimburse one of its commissioners for needing an attorney to face a charge that was leveled against that commissioner.
Are we good with that statement? Attorney Stone, you wanted to?
Yeah, if I may. Just I thought that there was a request for or indemnification for fees going forward. Is there, I didn't see it in the,
Well, but that's not something, and that was meant for, listen, it was sent to the district board. I said that at the beginning. That was referred here. I didn't refer it here, the board did. I sent that to the district board because the district board could consider, if it went forward, consider like further indemnifying me against the cost of the thing. This board can't make that decision. The Board of Finance can't indemnify me, and at the district board, I wasn't asking that we respond to the statute. I was asking the board to do that.
through you, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Stone,
And
to the clerk.
I'll try to be clear. That's where I got this whole thought of indemnification. That's what implicated the statute. There is a statute on indemnification. If you're not asking for indemnification, so be it, but it wasn't anything I raised. It was raised by the proponent of the resolution. So that being said, in deference to the Board of Finance, either we're going to get redacted billings or we're not. And to condition getting redacted billings on, making sure that, you can't talk about anything else is unfair. You may not want it. You may have asked all your questions, and that's fine. But to condition a table in postponement or recess, whatever it might be, on so long as you don't talk about anything else, I think is inappropriate. And I would suggest that, again, there may be nothing more, but state that up front, I don't think is right.
Chairman Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Attorney Stone. If we were to move to recess right now and reconvene at 5:30, would we begin that meeting with Commissioner Hoffman sitting as acting chair?
Yes. If you're recessing this meeting, this special meeting, and you're going to reconvene or reassemble this meeting, whenever, next Wednesday at a time certain. He's the chair now, he'd be the chair at that meeting as well.
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
go right
this is
ahead.
John Myrtle. The meeting on the 24th is a regular meeting.
No, I understand that. They would have two meetings on the 24th. They would have the regular meeting, and then they'd reconvene, reassemble for the balance
Or
of
we
this
would
meeting.
have the special meeting and then reconvene and have the regular meeting.
Either way.
With respect to Commissioner Hoffman, I did ask that he act as chair until it's voted on by the board. So as long as it's still an active special meeting and recess, this meeting's recessed to another time, so that he still acts as the chair until the vote on that adjudicates the issue.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm only
Mr. Kerr.
suggesting recessing because one, either we recess and reconvene, or we add it to a regular agenda meeting. The timeline is going to be the same. In fact, if we add it, it's going to be longer because we're going to have to recreate everything we did tonight to get where we are right now. So I think it would be much cleaner to recess and reconvene at 5:30 first, and then move on to the regular meeting afterwards.
This is John Myrtle.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think the only potential problem with that, the regular meeting is scheduled for 5:30,
So
so.
we have ample time to reschedule.
True.
So if I can just make a comment or two, and by all means, raise your hands if you want to be recognized for a response. It seems to me that this body cannot do much more than refer back to the full board. Unless I'm mistaken, and correct me if I'm doing that, we can refer, which we can do, I believe, immediately without a recess. And I'm not suggesting that the recess might be a bad idea. It might be a good idea. But if we refer to the full board determines fiscal policy. The Finance Committee only facilitates the expending of those funds that may or may not be approved for appropriation through the Finance Committee. And so we're still going to go back to the full board if I see it clearly. At which point, the full board can determine 15,000, 100,000, 2,000. It doesn't make any difference. But we can only move that by our approval through the finance department in a way that we determine with their approval, because they have to do the mechanics. So we really can't do much in terms of making this decision, it seems to me. And if someone wants to respond to that, correct that, restate it, by all means.
I would,
Please.
Mr. Chair, I would only say that, you know, that you and I and other members here have sat through years' worth of Board of Finance meetings, and so what you described is essentially that, like each year, the staff of the Metropolitan District Commission proposes a budget to us. We review it, and then we recommend the budget to the district board. Or we might make a change, we might recommend a change, but that doesn't mean the district board has to accept it, whatever. So, yeah, you described it, I think you described it well, and that's what we're asking here, that this board just recommends to the district board that, you know, that what we put before you, you know, made sense, and that's pretty much what we've been asking. So, I don't know where you're going with that, Ellen, but I just wanted to confirm that I think you had the right idea with it, so.
Well, only to clarify what our charge at this moment is and what we can actually do in terms of our official charge. So that's the only reason I said what I said. Go ahead, Commissioner Curry, Mr.
And
Chairman.
certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Curry. Certainly, whatever Commissioner Salemi believes is okay, either version. My only concern will be that when we reach at the district board level, and I'm not going to speak for Commissioner Russo, but the very same question I anticipate being asked, are the billings reasonable? And if we can't determine that in committee, we're going to have to go through that at the district board level. So it's one place or the other.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yacovazzi, so if by sending it back to the board, does that, for lack of a better word, imply that the Board of Finance approves that or not necessarily?
No.
Okay.
Again,
Commissioner DeBella, excuse me.
I think this issue, there's issues have been raised about the legitimacy of the billing, and probably would be raised at the board level anyway, I would assume also. But I think that the simplest situation here is the only one that can resolve this issue, one way or the other, is the board, the general board of the Metropolitan District Commission. They can say yes, they can say yes to the amount or no, and the jurisdiction of this committee is really only fact-finding and not determining yes or no.
Right.
So I would think the motion to refer should be one considered to the board. And if the committee votes no, Commissioner Salemi would also have the right to go to the board in general as a commissioner and request that the chairman to put it on the board agenda and bring it up at a special board meeting. And in the event that didn't happen, I think it's 3 commissioners can request a special meeting of the board to consider it anyway. So in my opinion, it should be referred to the board. The committee should refer to, I don't have a vote on it, but the committee should refer the issue to the board, that which basically Commissioner Salemi is asking.
What?
Commissioner Russo.
Russo, thank you. Well, just a general referral to the board, if I understand you correctly. The Board of Finance isn't going to make the decision whether the fees are reasonable. That's up to the district board. Whether the request itself to reimburse for private counsel was reasonable, that's within the purview of the district board. This committee doesn't have the authority to do that. So I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think we should just make a very general motion to refer the matter to the district board for consideration. Not make a comment that the fees are reasonable, that the representation was necessary. That's not what we're here for this evening, if I'm correct.
Would you like to state that
Agree.
as a motion? Or not yet?
Excuse
Tell me.
me, I should have written it down. Yeah. That I move that the request, or what is the request specifically? I move that the request for reimbursement for legal fees submitted by Commissioner Salemi be referred to the district council for review and approval.
District board.
I'm sorry, district board, I'm sorry, district
You
board.
can't get away from me, Star.
Right, right, that's right,
2 different spellings.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Second, Mr. Adel, Commissioner Adel. So, we have the motion on the floor. We have a second. All in favor?
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
may,
Yes, please.
if I could suggest to Commissioner Salemi and Attorney Sullivan that they might want to be prepared at the district board meeting with redacted copies.
That's what I was expecting. through the chair.
Very good. Again, all in favor of the motion that has been put forward, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Say nay. None. Thank you. It's unanimous. I think unless anyone has a further comment, what we're here for is finished.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the issues
Please.
is voted on, so, you know, I think the next item on the agenda is,
General public comment.
Yes.
sorry.
And would there be any general public comments? Would there be any general public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to commissioner requests for further agenda, future agenda items. Now's the time for that. And seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Adel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.